Hello, my name is Mrs. Danielle McKernan. I wanted to come on here today to talk to you about the digital learning provision that we have in place for you during this period of distance learning. I hope that this presentation will provide some insights for you, our parents, about the provision that we have got in place, and also will give you the opportunity to provide some feedback to us on that.
The main areas that we'll go through this evening are our continuity of learning strategy, the plans that we have put in place to ensure your child's education can continue despite disruption. Also to signpost to you the different support areas that you can access in school, to talk you through how teaching and learning will look in this new distance learning format, and importantly, the rationale for the type of learning that your child will experience. Also, I'd like to talk to you about some practical readiness to learn steps that you can use to ensure your child is ready and focused to learn. And you'll also be interested in the engagement and monitoring strategies that we will be doing our end to give you an insight into that. And also to talk to you about the communication methods that you can expect to experience between school and home. At the start of the year, we knew there was going to be some level of disruption to learning, so we set out our plan, and our plan then was to ensure that quality learning could continue regardless of whatever mode we found ourselves in. So face-to-face mode is a mode we would all prefer to be in, but unfortunately what we've encountered during the year is the fact that some students needed to go and self-isolate. So this was our high flex mode, and in high flex mode we have the teacher in the lesson teaching the children in front of them, but the children at home then were able to call in directly to the lesson using live streaming with Google Meet, and they were able to access the same learning that the children were experiencing in the class. So the reason we set up this model was because we wanted to ensure an equity of learning for the pupils at home. We wanted them to feel that they were as part of the class as much as possible as they could be, and we felt that this approach worked best. Then the third mode that we planned for was the mode that we now find ourselves in, distance learning. Now, as much as we would love, the distance learning just does not match the same experience that you could have in face-to-face. So the same is true for the types of resources and the types of teaching that can happen. It is slightly different. So we can't, as much as we would like to, replicate fully the experience your child has in face-to-face in this distance learning mode. But I will take you through and reassure you that the experience that they will have with regards to quality teaching and quality learning will still be there. Down at the bottom of the screen, you can see the little orange rectangle. In there, we talk about the POWER model. That's how we ensure quality of teaching and learning standards are maintained. We ensure that we use the good teaching pedagogy that we know works well. We look at educational research and we apply all of that into the distance learning that we deliver. The key areas where you can find support is from the following sections. So you could go onto our distance learning microsite, which is a dedicated site especially for you to help support you during distance learning. On there you'll find three main sections. There's a pupil parent tutorial section, there's how-to guides on there that you can download, there's little videos to help you, for example, to be able to get logged on and so on. There's password reset links on there as well, and very importantly there's signposted parts where you can get emotional support for your child if you're concerned about their well-being. On the school website then, we have a dedicated COVID-19 section. What we have on there is basically a repository of all of the resources and communications that we have sent out to you. You don't need to worry too much about always going and accessing that particular section of the website, because everything that's very important to you will be posted out on our school app. So you will get that push notification out to you, but please do visit our school website if there is something in particular that you're looking for. The Sims Parent app will be used for support as well, so we can contact you via that way to give you information directly about your child. And also, please remember that we are open for business. Contact the school if you have any concerns, if you have any questions, and there will be somebody who will get back to you. Contact us even about pastoral issues, contact us about academic. We will return your call. So the emotional support and well-being that we can provide for you. we can't see the children in front of us anymore. So it's a bit more difficult for us to know how they are doing. Please keep us updated. Phone the school if there's anything we need to be aware of, and we will always try to help. Keep that communication open with us. On the distance learning microsite, you'll have noticed there the emotional support section. There's a message on there from Jean, our arts psychotherapist who works directly with our school, and Jean has given some reassurance to our pupils on there and also has supplied the details from where you can contact her. Now, pupils can also contact their form tutor directly. The form tutor is available to the pupils at any stage, and they can contact by putting in a private message to their teacher directly on Google Classroom. There's other links that you might be interested in to avail of support, family support NI, for example, all listed on that distance learning microsite. So how will you expect to see teaching and learning delivered? Now, remember I said that we can't fully replicate face-to-face teaching. It's just not possible in the distance learning environment. But what we will aim to do is follow a 3-step model. We will present, apply and review. And at any stage, if you were looking in at what your child was doing on Google Classroom, you will find your child is working at one of these 3 stages in the learning process. They will be either being presented with material from their teacher, so content, new content that they haven't yet learned yet. It's not just consolidation of old material, it's new content, so they're moving forwards in their learning. They will be then at an apply stage where they have to do something with the content that's being presented to them. They have to engage with it, and that's how, for example, they will be able to get some independent practice and know where they are in their learning. That's then fed to the teacher in the review stage where they need to submit their work. The teacher will mark their work, give them feedback on it. The teacher then has an indication of where every single child is in their learning and is able to then tweak their practice to come to the next stage of their lesson where they're presenting again and know which materials are suitable for which pupils in the class. So at any stage you will see present, apply or review in action during distance learning. And I will go through what exactly present, apply and review looks like later in the presentation. Our aim is always to ensure that there is equal participation in distance learning. We will make sure during our live lessons that everybody is fully engaged. There is a debate around cameras on, cameras off. Sometimes cameras off are better because the pupils then can all engage and think without having to worry about how they look on camera, without having to worry about being distracted by others in the lesson. And what we find then is that they can focus much more on the learning, and that's ultimately what it's about. Now, we can see that the child is participating because we use tools and techniques that are collaborative. For example, we will use a Jamboard or a slides technique where every child needs to respond to every question the teacher is asking. This is so valuable for us because it makes thinking visible. We can see what every child is thinking, we can see the depth of their thinking, and then we can take action based on that. So this is all about responsive teaching. We want to hear the voice of every child. Every child's voice, we want to hear it. And the way we do that is by using these collaborative techniques and also by using the private comment section on Google Classroom. We find that this actually is one of the main benefits of distance learning. We can hear from every child, and those children who are more introverted in nature often now find they have more of a voice through this platform. So we will always focus on the teaching. It's not about lots of apps, lots of tools that can be used. It's all about how one particular tool or 2 particular tools are used. And we will always think about the teaching and learning and what works well in our classroom, and is there a way that we can translate that to an online platform. The way the collaborative Jamboard and slides work are similar to a mini whiteboard. So we can see what everybody is writing, even though their cameras are off. So the way it'll work is a teacher will pose a question, the pupils respond, we can implement all the strategies we know work well in class, like think, pair, share. So for example, they can go to another pupil's slide, add another point, add a counter argument, they can do some peer marking, and we get all of that richness of discussion as a result. We will use other techniques like chat waterfall, which the pupils really enjoy. But again, fundamentally, everybody has to answer the question. In a live lesson, everybody has to be engaged. So the chat waterfall is a technique, for example, where the teacher will ask the question and then give some thinking time, and then after a countdown of 3, 2, 1, everybody hits enter, and then the chat is flooded with all of their responses. And that again provides an opportunity to hear from every child. It ensures that every child is participating, and it also gives the teacher information about what way they're thinking and what way the teacher then needs to address the explanation in the lesson. Other techniques we use then are thin slides. So again, giving the children thinking time, go to one slide, put one word in, put one image in, and then we have discussion based around that. So present, how do you expect to see present in the delivery of distance learning? Well, we will use a wide range of approaches. We will use a mix of pre-recorded videos, live lessons, and the department resource booklets and handouts that they know are customized and refined and work well in their particular classrooms. So all of our lessons won't be live, because we know that it's so important to have a variety here. Everybody's got different experiences at home. They've got perhaps devices that they need to share with siblings. We've got broadband that's not that strong. So we need to provide a mix. We have to have a balance that suits everyone. So your child will engage in present activities using one of these approaches. Pre-recorded videos are very valuable. Some people think that the live lesson is the most valuable way that you can work, but a pre-recorded video is actually very useful, because the teacher has to sit down in advance and really plan and think about what they're going to say. They script the direct chunks of learning, so they're a very tight bit of instruction. And what the pupils can then do as a result is rewind, rewatch at their own pace. So this is very valuable. It allows a more personalized approach to learning, and then it frees the teacher up to go and work with specific children individually and in groups. So if your teacher is involved in a live lesson for every class for every day, it means they can't do this. They haven't got the time to go and then provide that rich individual support to every child. And we want our distance learning, as far as possible, to be personalised to your child. We want to make sure that we know where every child is in their learning at any stage. So live lessons are an interactive learning experience. They will not be broadcasts. They won't be webinars. The pupils must be engaged and they must be thinking hard. Now, this is tiring. And it's tiring for both the teachers and the pupils. Your child will be tired if they've had to think hard a lesson. Pupils at the start thought that a live lesson was a time where they could sit back and just listen to a teacher talking and talking and talking. It's absolutely not like that. That's a passive form of learning, which we know is not effective. So we will only use live lessons to deliver an interactive learning experience. Live lessons are not a substitute for your child sitting down and reading material and really thinking about the material themselves independently. There will be a mix of approaches. We do know that live lessons are valuable. We don't want to lose the live lessons because they offer such a sense of community in the classroom. It's wonderful to hear all of the pupils' voices. It's wonderful to see everybody when they're all on camera, and we don't want to lose that because it does have its place. It also allows, most valuably, a sense of responsive teaching. The teacher is constantly assessing, constantly adjusting the lesson. They're always asking themselves, do I know where the pupil is in their learning? So if, for example, you are walking past in your house and your child is in a live lesson and everything is very quiet, It's likely because they're having to type their answers in and be fully engaged. So this is all about thinking. It's not about sitting passively listening to a teacher speaking. Department resource booklets then, they will often be used to present content in a way that the pupil can go back and revisit later, and will also provide some top tips for the pupil on how to succeed in each subject. These are tried and tested booklets that the teacher knows has worked well, and the teacher has curated the most relevant information into those. We have looked at the evidence of pre-recorded videos and how they should be done well, and any pre-recorded video that we do includes all of this good design principles in those pre-recorded videos. So an example of a lesson where we're presenting is using this collaborative Jamboard. So here, for example, we will model and scaffold the teaching and learning. So what we will do is use an approach: I do, we do, you do. So I do, the teacher demonstrates, models what they have to do. We do, then the pupils will go off and practice the question live in the lesson with the teacher, but there's support still in place. Here we use some techniques that we know from pedagogy, from the work of Dylan William, the confidence measures. So he used technique of coloured cups. So we have translated that then into distance learning, and we have, for example, these little colours at the bottom to indicate how confident the pupil feels. So everybody has to participate. So green means they're feeling happy with how they're doing, they're okay, they're able to work through it. Amber means that they're alerting the teacher that they want the teacher to come and check it to make sure they're on the right track. Red means they need support. That's a signal to the teacher to come and ask them about how they're doing it, or to give them more prompts and scaffolds to get started. The screen over here that has nothing on indicates a child who's not engaged. This child has either absolutely doesn't know where to start or has gone offline. And that's then where the teacher will follow up in terms of engagement. So sometimes if a child comes online, they might get disrupted, for example, through broadband. So at the end of the lesson, the teacher has known that this child isn't participating and is able to follow that up with a private message to see what happened. If, for example, it is a child who has just decided that they're not going to participate in the lesson, then again, that's monitored, tracked, and the teacher can follow that up and then provide supports into the child so that they can catch up this lesson and make sure that they don't fall behind. So it's all about early intervention, monitoring and tracking, and in the lesson everybody being engaged, everybody must participate. So that's the technique that we will use. Apply activities then. So your child will not always be live online. We will use a mix of activities. It's very important to get a balance. They will use a range of different strategies to access their learning. There will be offline activities and online activities. We really believe that children think with ink. So we will employ the same strategies we use in the classroom where possible. So for example, retrieval practice strategies using this technique called fold and frenzy. So you will see your child out with a pen and paper actually writing. So when they go onto their Google Classroom for a particular day, it may not be a live lesson, maybe one of these apply tasks. So in this fold and frenzy, how it works is they will have the content from their department workbook. They will need to summarize that content, then they fold it and they make a mind map on it. So constantly reducing the volume of the content, folding it again and writing out the key words, folding it again and doing some images on it. And that's for dual coding, which we know from our educational research works and really helps support learning. So if you think that your child's not in a live lesson and you're concerned because you think they're not continuing with their learning, believe me, they are. They're being encouraged to think. A child finds it often more challenging to have to work on their written skills themselves independently. So that's why we need to ensure that they do have time in their day to practice those tasks. So we will still insist that all of those types of tasks and learning are integrated in our digital learning, distance learning provision. Online then, there'll be opportunities for the teacher to see their work in action, to talk about their work in collaborative tasks. Review then, assessment and feedback. How does the teacher know where the pupil is in their learning? So those apply tasks must always be submitted. The teacher is then able to look at the written work of the child and look at how they're doing, look at where they are in their thinking and their depth of understanding of the subject. And then the teacher is able to take action based on that. If a child doesn't submit the work, well, then the teacher is able to go and follow up on that. So, as I said, the live lessons are very valuable, but the independent application is extremely important too. Often a child can try to cherry pick the tasks that they do. They don't want to do, for example, a task that requires some written skills or some written work. They would prefer to just sit back and listen to a teacher teaching. But we know that that's not effective teaching and learning. So we will ensure that during the apply stage, that any work that they have to do independently must be submitted, and the teacher then can see who is missing work, and they can see from the work that's submitted the level of performance in that work. So we will use two main types then of review and assessment of your child's work. We will use live lessons, where we will synchronously give whole class feedback. So the teacher will look at all of the work that's submitted, pick up the key points, the key misconceptions, and then go on in the live lesson and talk the class down through all the key areas that they need to look at and to clarify any points further. It's an opportunity for your child to ask questions live and to get their questions answered. And again, the idea that I talked about previously, the responsive teacher. The teacher is able to adjust their lesson live, depending on what the children need. Offline feedback then, the asynchronous. We are all very fortunate in our school to have iPads, so we will be able to directly annotate on the work. Now, this is quite time consuming, so what we will do is select particular pieces of work to really do a good deep mark on, but all work will be looked at. Children will get a comment on all work in the private comment section. We know that's so important to allow the child to know that their work is being monitored, and also to allow the child to ask follow-up questions and to have a learning dialogue with their teacher about their work in that private comments. So we really value this aspect of having a personalized learning platform. So it's actually a more rich platform to have learning dialogues than we can often do even in the face-to-face classroom. We will use the technique feed forward. This will be our strategy. We will always try to look at where the child is in their learning while they're actually doing the task. So we don't want to leave it to the very end, and at any point we want to be able to dip in, provide a comment to let them know where they're going, how they're getting on during the actual learning, because we know that during the learning and during the actual task is when they will most likely implement the feedback. Often at the end, if they get a comment at the end when the work's done, they're reluctant to go back and make revisions on that. So feedback is very important during the process of the task, and also we know that's where it is most impactful. We will also make use of low-stake quizzes. The pupils really enjoy this. It gives them an opportunity to practice and review the key bits of information that they have learnt about, and they really enjoy the idea of getting this immediate feedback. They can know immediately whether their answer is right or wrong. Now, you might walk in and have a look at your child doing a quiz in their distance learning classroom and think they're playing a game. What's going on? Is that high quality teaching and learning? So I just wanted to give you an insight into all the analytics that actually happen behind the scene in those quizzes. So while your child is working on those and really enjoying them, it gives such rich information to your teacher, and the teacher is able to then rejig the lesson if needs be as a result of the information that they see here. So misconceptions can be identified early, and the teacher can go back in the next lesson and re-explain something. So for example, here in this section you can see that we're alerted to questions that were difficult, so that lets us know something we need to re-explain. Over here what we've got are children who are identified who need some extra support, who have got a low mark in the quiz. And then over here we have children who didn't complete it or didn't finish it at some stage. So that's where the teacher will follow up on engagement or to see if there's an issue with the learning. So all of this is a personalised support technique. So here's an example of the learning cycle working down through this present, apply, review. How does it work? Well, in face-to-face, the teacher might have, for example, their department workbook that they're working through. There could be questions throughout, questions at the end. How does this translate to distance learning? So in distance learning, it's best for the child to read the handout first in advance of a live lesson in an asynchronous way. So when a child goes onto their Google Classroom, the task there could be, look at this work, action it by doing these questions or making a mind map or making out a set of revision cards, and then show me how you have actioned it. So this is done asynchronously. Then they would go on to a synchronous live lesson, and they would use the collaborative techniques and equal participation to do another activity to demonstrate their learning to the teacher. So it might be going on, for example, doing a retrieval practice brain dump activity, and they will drop in to the slide everything that they know and understand about the particular topic that they read in the handout. So this helps the teacher know that they read the asynchronous handout that was delivered to them, and will also help the teacher know their depth of understanding of that, and to then develop that understanding further. So this is where the teacher adds value. A child who has to sit through material that is cognitively very easy to understand will switch off in a live lesson, because they can work through that themselves. So we have to be strategic and think about, where does the teacher add value? And this is how a live lesson will be used. It'll be used to ensure that this is where the teacher can support the child best. So offline activities then could follow a live lesson, so the teacher knows where the children are, and then will supply a set of offline review type questions for them to go over, and then the cycle continues. They will rejoin another meeting later at another stage in their learning, and then we'll go over the answers and check everybody understands. So the aim is to ensure their learning can continue. So they're learning new content. This is not just consolidation of previous content that they have gone through. We're moving them forwards in their learning. And we really believe this blend of approaches is best and most effective to get the balance for everyone. It helps the pupils who don't have very strong Wi-Fi to access their learning. It also provides that key live interaction with their teacher. And we think that this approach is the best way forward, a blend of offline and online activities. So how can you get your child ready to learn, ready to be engaged? So the continuity of learning guidelines were posted out on the school app, so you could look at those again, refresh your memory on them. So there were key things, for example, making sure your child has got earphones on to protect the privacy of your house, to make sure that your child is off mic again to protect the privacy, and also to ensure that the online behaviour is appropriate. And thank you very much for signing the live lessons agreement, and we really appreciate your commitment to helping us keep the live lessons secure for everyone. So safeguarding is very important to us, and we really appreciate your support with that. We also need to be aware of getting the school-home life balance, and this is for pupils and as well for teachers. So we want to make sure that everybody is supported in being able to keep this balance well. So our pupils, for example, often they are expected to work in a situation where they've got siblings at home, young siblings, and their parents maybe are trying to support those siblings with their own learning. So we want our pupils to be able to work independently through the tasks that we set. Also, teachers, remember, they're working from home as well. Very often they have young families around them, so they're also trying to balance all of these responsibilities. So we want to ensure the well-being of our teachers and the well-being of our pupils, and we need to ensure that the teachers are able to get this balance right. So please contact the teachers during working hours, and the teacher will come back to the people in the private comments section. We understand that sometimes it works best for people to contact the teacher late in the evening, but please only expect a response during working hours. Some teachers, remember, will be trying to support up to perhaps 200 pupils. So unlike primary school, where the teacher has got 30 pupils to look after, we're not always able to immediately respond, but we will do our best where we can. So learning routines then, so what we would recommend is that your child at the start of every day moves through the Google Classrooms according to the subjects on their timetable for that day, and teachers will schedule the work. At the start of the year, we had a discussion about how best to schedule the work. Previously in the spring, we allocated the work at the start of the week and allowed a great deal of flexibility for pupils to work through that. But our feedback from parents and feedback from teachers suggested that often children raced through the work and completed the work at a very low quality just to get it off their to-do list. So now we're going to take the approach of scheduling the work out during different stages of the day. So we would hope then that it'll keep the child constantly engaged with the Google Classroom platform and engaged with their teachers. The last approach we used, where we scheduled at the start of the week, what was happening was the child was getting all their work completed in 1 or 2 days and then not engaging with the platform for a full week. So we don't want to use that approach again. We want the children to be constantly engaged with their learning. So they will always have to take action on the work set. So they will have to complete a task, submit it, they'll have to join meetings. So all of that information will be in the Google Classroom for them for that day, so they know what they have to do. Sometimes the work is an ongoing project, so they may have go onto their Google Classroom and realise that they're still working on a particular project. It could be, say, in technology, they're designing and constructing a lamp. So they would be continuing to work down through that task over a number of days. It's useful to write in their homework diaries the tasks that they need to complete and the deadlines. So still keep up that technique of using the homework diary to help them stay managed and help them to stay organised. The number of assignments will differ according to the subjects and also to the type of tasks. So you can't really count down through and say one subject did 3 assignments, one subject did 1 assignment. It doesn't really work like that. Each assignment would be different styles of tasks, different depth, different amount of work created in it. So just be aware of that it's not, you can't compare assignments by the number of them. So how will your child know what work they have to do? So again, traversing through the Google Classroom and also going on to the to-do list on their Google Classroom. So they go onto here, to-do list, and they will see a list of everything that needs done and the date that it's due by. So we encourage pupils to be proactive and ask questions in the Google Classroom, either on the stream in the public area, or if they're not comfortable doing that, in the private comment section. Always contact their form teacher if they need emotional support or any practical support, and the form teacher is readily available to your child. We also recommend they have a study buddy. So if your child doesn't have someone that they can contact to talk about the work as well, please let us know, and the form teacher will very subtly put provision in place to help your child get buddied up with some pupils. So the strategies then we use to make sure your child is engaging with their learning and is also submitting their work, and that their work is submitted to a high standard, are as follows. So we will use assignments, because in assignments what we can do is determine whose work is missing. So from our view, this is what we see. We see the number of children we have assigned the work to, and we see how many have been turned in, and then we click on this and we can see who has submitted the work. Anybody who's not submitted the work remains in this assigned section. So they're children who have not completed the task, and then we can follow up on that. We will send a message through the Google Classroom to ask them if there's something holding them back. Is there a barrier to their learning? Is there any support we can give them to help them complete the task? And it helps us then to see very clearly, because we have an overall mark book in Google Classroom, and we can see at a glance which pieces of work have been missing. We will also then, of course, use the Google Slides and Google Docs revision history, and we can see when it was last accessed by a particular person. And in our live lessons, we take attendance at the start and during the lesson. We are also then able to fully monitor the participation, because we make use of these collaborative Jamboard and slides activities. We make use of the chat responses. So we're able to very easily know who is engaged in the live lesson. So even if, for example, the attendance is taken at the start and a pupil drops off during the lesson, we know that because they haven't been participating, and we will make a note of that as we go through the lesson. So live lessons, as you can see, are challenging for a teacher because they have all of this administration to do in the background as well. At the end of a live lesson, a teacher will then go off and communicate lack of engagement to the senior key leaders of the particular key stages. So this is how we communicate lack of engagement. So at the end of a live lesson, the teachers then have this admin that they will do. So this is just an insight to you about sort of work that goes on behind the scenes when your teacher is not live with your child on a particular lesson. So they have all of this follow-up that they do, which we know is so important. So we have a shared spreadsheet where all the teachers will record a code against your child's name for that particular subject. So they'll say, for example, DNA did not attend the live, or LE, lack of engagement, or there'll be other codes for low quality of work and so on. So the key stage leaders at a glance at any stage can go into that spreadsheet and see the overall picture for every child that they are looking after and monitoring. They can look for patterns very quickly and see them emerging, and then take action as soon as possible. So this early intervention is so important. They will send out an individual message to you on Sims Parent App to say where we think that there could be a problem emerging, and then for more serious and more concerning cases, you will have a phone call. So please be aware that we are monitoring very closely your child's engagement. We're monitoring their learning progress, and we will be in touch with you if there's any concerns that we have. So how do we communicate progress with you? So the Guardian summary email will let you know the work that your child has to do, let you see any missing work, will let you see that the task that was need to be completed. So that will support you in being able to speak to your child to say that you have got this email, and in this email they were supposed to have done this task and the task is now missing. So it helps you be very precise about what you're saying to your child. It helps you support your child. If, for example, you are going to your child and saying, oh, have you worked today? Have you finished your work? Have you got that all done? That's very general, and your child can easily say, yes, I've got it done. But if you're able to come with the specifics and say, the LAMP project for technology has missing against it, show me your LAMP project, why have you not that done? So that, for example, really supports you able to be specific about the actual work and to ensure that you can follow that up with your child. Now, having said that, be reassured that the teachers are already following that up. You don't have to necessarily action these Guardian summary emails. They're really just there for your information and to support you if you do want to have that insight into where they are in their learning. The Sims Parent App then will be used by SLT to send you a message where there are concerns about the engagement or quality of work. Also, we will send you out information about your child that is doing well. So we want to ensure that those children who are doing well are recognised for that. So you will get that information individually about your child on Sims Parent App. There will be phone calls as well, because we know nothing beats speaking to you individually about your child and the progress, and that's very important because you can then give us insights into how everything's working out for you at home, and then we'll be able to put a plan in place to ensure improvement is brought about and to have some re-engagement strategies that will be useful to make sure we can get your child back on track as quickly as possible. You will receive reports out from the school at half term, and there's written reports come out as normal later in the year. Now, we know that there are a lot of challenges with home learning. This idyllic picture that you can see at the side is not really a true reflection of how home learning looks. We know that. It is very stressful. We know that you have a lot of things to balance. We know you're maybe working from home yourself. So what we have to do is make sure we find an approach that works for everyone. We believe flexibility is really important. So that's why we will have a blend of tasks that your child will work through, lives and also offline tasks, to give you that degree of flexibility. We will try to make sure the tasks are varied and interesting. So, for example, we won't have passive live lessons where your child is having to sit in front of a screen all day. We want them to be creative, imaginative, to have opportunities to do tasks offline as well. We know that there are challenges with the Wi-Fi, and thank you very much for completing that survey on the devices availability you have in your house and your Wi-Fi availability. That has provided us with great information that we've been able to then take action on. Supporting your child at home is difficult, and please get in touch with us if there's anything that you need to some help with. I mean, I've been on the phone with some parents and I can hear even in the background the challenges that you're facing. So for example, the child is having difficulty getting logged into the Google Classroom platform. I'm on the phone, on speakers, talking to the child, and in the background I can hear all of the work that's going on by you parents supporting your other children and getting them online with their learning. So I appreciate the challenges that you are all facing. So thank you very much for your support. I really appreciate you listening in today, and I hope this has given you some insight into the home learning that we have provided for you. Please join me in the Zoom meeting for the Q&A, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. And alternatively, if you're watching this offline, there's a question form that you can fill in and we can phone you back and discuss any issues with you. Just finally, please let us know how your child is doing. It is so important that your child is happy, content, and confident. If your child is not, please let us know, because a child who is not happy won't be able to learn well. And we need to know that, and we will put support in place. Please let us know how the provision is working for you. We aim to find a balanced approach for everyone, an approach that's sustainable for our teachers and ensures our teachers' well-being, because if the teacher has not got strong well-being, well, they won't be able to support your child properly. So we want to make sure that workload and life balance is addressed. We want to make sure that your pupils are not overloaded and that they can manage the learning and they can always progress with their learning. And you parents, we want to make sure that this is manageable for you as well. So the key thing is balance. We want to maintain our high standards of teaching and learning, but finding an approach that's balanced and works for everyone. Thank you.